Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rave Social Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden, and today we have our guest, Natalie. Natalie is a mindset and business mentor for kind-hearted, ambitious female entrepreneurs who crave confidence, making an impact, and authentically growing their business. She's really awesome. We've made friends through Instagram. We're so excited to have her on the podcast today. And Natalie, you're like a digital nomad, right?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. And it's been such a long time coming of just like us chatting and doing this podcast. So I'm so excited.
Me too.
I've been a digital nomad for about 5 years and living out of my suitcase. So I definitely have a different way of life and it's really exciting. It's very thrilling in all the possible ways. And I'm just living life to the fullest, if I'm going to be honest. So, yeah,
It really seems like you are.
I definitely am. I'm one of those people where I don't want to wait until I'm retired to have lived my life. I'm really lucky to confidently say, like, if I died tomorrow, I actually would feel like I've lived a really, really good life. And that's just because I really have made everything a priority. Like I've made travel a priority. I've made doing my bucket list things a priority. I've made building a business a priority. And those are all the things that I really just care about at the end of the day and want to be known for and find fulfillment in. And so it really is about like bringing that fulfillment of what you would want to remember when your time has come and bringing that into the now so that you feel like you're living like the most fulfilling life. So travel is part of that for me.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Perth, Western Australia.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We were like, what time should we record? And I'm like, where are you?
Yeah, that's the big question. Like amongst friends, amongst everyone, there was like, where are you? And like, where to next? So, like, it's just kind of, I almost need like a little pin where people can just follow and track me wherever I go. And I've definitely toned it down over the past like year, where 1 year I did 20 countries in a year. So like one every 2 weeks. That was a lot. And I don't do that as much now. Now I'm like, okay, we'll do like 2 months here or like 2 weeks, like longer stints versus every 5 days or whatever, a new country. So it's a lot to balance. I mean, it is kind of a full-time job in itself, like just planning the travel, figuring out what you're going to do. But it's made me such an efficient person in terms of like also planning out my days, like balancing travel and balancing work, because you just have to like optimize your schedule in such an efficient way.
It's so interesting. Like every time I go to do something in my business, I'm like, that's a full-time job. Like the podcast, I'm like, I need a podcast manager. I obviously manage podcasts, so it's faster for me. But like I go to write an email and I'm like, I need an email person. Like it seems like every aspect of my business is a full-time job.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of is. Like, if you think about it, when you take a step back, if your business was expanded, that would be a full role for someone. Like, each of your business has so many different departments. So, like, your email marketing, for example, would be its own department if you had a team of 10. So, it's just that you're that team of 10 and you have, like, these 10 little people inside of you who are running the departments for you versus someone else actually doing it for you.
I mean, it just is crazy because it's so true. And sometimes when I like don't deliver on what I wanted to get done, or, I wanted to send out an email every single week and I didn't, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And then I'm like, it's because like I'm doing all these things plus client work, and sometimes you just can't get to it.
You can't. And that's the thing. It's really about picking what moves the needle in your business. I see this so often with clients where they're so focused on the things that don't actually move the needle. And it's about simplifying and cutting back on what's not going to actually bring you the income or bring you the clients or the work that like just has to get done. So it's not about doing more. It's actually about doing less and doing better. So you're not overwhelmed and overstressed by it. Obviously, it's one thing if you're like trying something new, but you can't be like the master at email marketing and TikToks and Instagram and Pinterest and podcasts and all these things. So it's really picking what works for you and really just like doing it well or doing it on a basis that's not overwhelming. So like so many people try and do like a weekly newsletter, and I tell them, I'm like, why don't you make it a monthly one so it feels less overwhelming? You take one day out of your month, and that's really when you're focused on recapping, reflecting what your month looked like, what you want to talk about. And that's so much less overwhelming than being like, I didn't get my newsletter done for this week, right? So, what
Yeah.
tasks can you make like weekly, monthly, even quarterly? Like, you could do quarterly newsletter. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because you see someone else doing a weekly one doesn't mean that weekly is right for you and your business.
Yeah, and that's something actually we want to talk about on the podcast today is that like comparison thing of like it's just so hard in this age that we're in where like you're consuming all the time and it's so hard not to compare yourself to everyone else. Like they're doing a weekly newsletter, they post every single day, they are on TikTok and pitch like and then you feel like perpetually behind, but you're the only one deciding that you're behind.
Exactly. You really are. And so it's, I think a lot of times we don't compare ourselves even to ourselves yesterday. So looking back at like you 2 weeks ago, where were you versus where you are today, and seeing how much you've already grown in those 2 weeks and what action and momentum has already come from that versus looking at this other person, you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so it's really hard when you're comparing yourself to that person. They could have someone who's actually doing those tasks for you, like you said. Like they could
Yeah.
have like a podcast manager, they could have an email marketer on their team or that they've outsourced. So you can't compare yourself to someone when you don't know the full picture of their picture. And it is that like Instagram versus reality. Like we
Yeah.
don't know the reality, but we look at the Instagramness and we're like, that's that. But obviously everyone's showing their best. And even I, like, I've had bad moments while traveling, and
Mhm.
but travel always looks so glamorous. And so there's so many
Yeah.
things that people don't realize, like even navigating like health while traveling, that I've had to face that you're not going to see in an Instagram post per se, but you're going to be like, wow, like,
Yeah.
she's traveled so much, all these things. So you have to look at yourself and where you were a week, a month, 3 months ago versus where that person is today.
Yeah, that's so huge. And I feel like we a lot of times like villainize social media. Like we're like social media is the problem. It's a highlight reel. It's like all these bad things, but like I honestly feel like it's your own responsibility. Like it's on you to recognize that everyone is sharing their highlights and that doesn't mean anything to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. It's exactly what you said, like that responsibility. It's taking the ability for your response to it and noticing what activated you. Because I can guarantee you that you and I are not going to be activated by the same things. We're not going to like find the same person and want to compare ourselves to them because we're different people and we care about different things and we want different things out of our life.
Yeah.
But there you're going to see that person and be like, wow, what is it that they have that I don't have? And that's where it really comes down to that golden shadow of like, what do you admire in other people that you wish you had for yourself? And when you do feel that sort of activation, that sort of like tinge of annoyance or panic, or just like they have it so much more together than me, it really just is reflecting to you your potential, like, and what you really care about and what you really want. And that's when you can look at it that way, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit and makes it realize that it is achievable for you. You just have to close that gap.
Like by seeing that shadow, that shows you kind of what you want and what you aspire to be. And so you can kind of reframe it from being a negative thing to being like, wow, that's so cool. Like you're showing me what I want and you're showing me what's possible.
Exactly. It's that intention that you come into it of not letting it mean something about who you are, but showing you like what it's reflecting to you. So it's about what it's telling you versus who you are as a person. Like that isn't meant to make you feel like crap, honestly. It's meant to just show you like, hey, you have so much potential that your internal system, like your heart, feels like you're not living up to. How can you close that gap? Or it's just showing you like your dreams, like you want that for yourself, and that's amazing. And I know one thing, even with just like sharing your highlight reels and things like that, I definitely was not the person to own my success in any capacity. And I've had to start leaning into that over time just because I see other people doing it. So it kind of allows you to lean more into your success, seeing other people lean into theirs and realizing, oh, this is okay to talk about. And it's okay to really just like own that. And it's not going to necessarily make someone feel bad. It's going to show them what's possible, and people see that. Like even with travel, people see that, and it's not meant to make them feel like crap, but people see, oh, like that freedom is totally possible and doable, and so that creates this like momentum behind people wanting to achieve freedom and creating all these businesses.
Yeah, that is so cool. And how do you approach that for yourself? So, like, I'm thinking about when I'm scrolling and I come across something that I'm like, oh man, like they just either they started at the same time as me and are doing so
Mhm.
much better, or I don't even know them, but I'm like, it just seems like they have their shit together. How do you like see that, feel triggered, and then be like, okay, it's not about them, it's about me and what I want? Like, how do you manage that?
I think it's first just like noticing that sort of activation. You have to get used to over time. But when you start to notice yourself like going down that rabbit hole a little bit, that's when you have to realize, oh, wait, like, why, what activated me to feel that way? And then just taking a step and acknowledging, like, kind of analyzing, like, what is it about them that really did activate me? What is it about? Was it like their aesthetic? Was it how they have these clients? Was it, like how much they're making, how far along they are in the business? Are they just like getting more like opportunities, things like that? And then realizing, okay, that's what I admire in them. I want that for myself. Let me go create that for myself. So even if you saw someone have like different podcast opportunities and be like, wow, like it's so cool that they're on this podcast, kind of like what I did with you, I'm like, hey, like, are you looking for podcast guests? Like, I would love to be on your
Yeah.
podcast. Like, just go after it, go do it, go be it. And it's not something that you have to wait for to achieve, but just figure out how you can close that gap.
I love that so much. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we both are like digital people, obviously. Um, do you ever remember a specific time on social media that you were like at a super low point?
Yeah.
Like you saw something or just an era?
Yeah. I almost would say this was with one of my first businesses where I noticed it starting to take a toll on my mental health. And that's because I was also talking about mental health. And so I'm a very sensitive person. And when I'm surrounded by things constantly, I kind of start to become it or just really take that on unintentionally. And when I started noticing it take a toll on my mental health, that's when I was like, okay, I got to put a pause. This is not something that I can let myself sacrifice like my health and well-being for in order to really just like be consistent and show up. It's that line of like, it's not necessarily, it wasn't a comparison thing. It was just, I need to take care of me too, because at the end of the day, one of the things I was preaching was taking care of your mental health. And I'm a huge person of embodiment. If I'm going to preach that to you, I need to do it first. So I took a step
Yeah.
back for a few months, and that ended up actually, it didn't really affect our business a lot. It actually still brought people, including Cosmopolitan Magazine, to our page and to reaching out to me. And so it was like one of those moments where when you take a step back and you actually move slower, the universe magic is just like working behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've totally experienced that too. Doesn't have to do with necessarily a low point on social media, but like a couple months ago, I mean, on paper, my business was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually started losing clients. Like I started having some turnover, which was super weird because up to that point, I had like extremely good client retention. But it forced me to slow down because I was like, this is my worst case scenario. There's nothing I can do. Like, obviously, I'm going to sell my offers or whatever, but they're leaving. And I'm just going to have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And it actually like slowed me down to a point where like I started having ideas where I was like, oh, now I have enough time to think that I actually want to be doing this or that more than I want to be doing full service management or whatever.
I love
So
that.
sometimes you really do have to slow down.
I think that's so important. And it's one of those things too where you either have like a breakdown or breakthrough. And you really
Yeah.
turn that like breakdown into a breakthrough where it's you could have really let that moment of losing those clients get to you and just really take you down. But instead, you used it as a time to assess and really refine what you actually wanted. And so you led that to be like a breakthrough and a new evolution of the Rave Social, which is a
Yeah.
great lesson for anyone who's listening.
Yeah, it did feel really good. And, you know, the numbers went down. But I was like, I honestly don't care. Like, I feel so much better that I was like, who cares? Like, I want to be doing this other thing. And now I can pursue that because I have the time.
I love that. That's a great lesson too, even just like taking your business a little less seriously. I know I can take my business a little too serious sometimes and
Oh, yeah.
just having fun with it, like allowing yourself to explore and try different things and know that even in an uncomfortable time, you can just sort of have fun and play without needing everything to be like consistent with income and consistent with
Yeah.
clients. Just how can you move through that inconsistency in that time where you really feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, because I'm like a consistency queen. Honestly, I don't know if it's my human design or being a Capricorn or what, probably both. But I'm a consistent person. So then I expect that out of my business.
Hmm.
But that's not really like a good expectation to have because it is unpredictable. And things are going to change. You don't have that much control. And it was definitely something I had to like work through. Be like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, but that says something about your self-trust with yourself, like that consistency, even just showing that I'm going to do everything in my power to be consistent, to create that consistency within my business, but then obviously your business is its own entity in its own little world
Yeah.
of the business world, and so it's not going to always be a reflection of who we are as well. And that's a little barrier that sometimes we have to just realize like this is not necessarily a reflection of me either.
Oh my gosh. Tell me more about that. Like, it is a separate entity, but I've never really thought about it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a separate entity in terms of like so you have all these external influences with your business. You have like the market, the economy, you have other people, their perceptions, and you really just have like the industry even and how the industry is doing. And so those are the things that influence what people are thinking about your business and wanting to whether they like want to invest in it or how they're perceiving it, and that's something that is not a reflection of like you how hard you're working, what you're doing, your consistency level. You can do everything in your power, but sometimes there is that little uncontrolled factor that you just can't necessarily like take to heart because it's not
Yeah.
always you. It's not always a you issue. It's uh it's just a world issue.
Yeah, but I feel like the internet and social media makes you feel like it's you. Like, you could be doing something more, you could be doing something better, like, whatever it is. And it's hard to separate yourself from that.
It is hard. And I think it is important to look back at yourself and say, what is it that I can be doing? Because that really leads you to innovate. And in that sort of circumstance, that's where you do want to innovate because innovation is what brings forward new ideas, new businesses, new offerings, things like that. Like you saw with your example, you ended up bringing forth like a new offer and you innovated
Yeah.
in that time where you had to take that step back.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh. Okay. What was one of your highest highs on social media? I'm sure you don't try to have like super high highs, but do you remember a moment where you were like, okay, like I'm doing it?
Yeah. I think not to be like going viral is the thing,
Yeah.
but I did remember it was in June. I had this like one reel go viral, and this was when I was really starting to get like into social media for my new business, which was a
Yeah.
completely different ball game. But I had created this reel, and some part of me just knew I was like, this is going to go viral. Like I'm going viral. And it was some Selena Gomez real audio with like a video of flowers, and it went like 237,000 views, like 100, like so many saves and everything. And I was like, I went viral, like I did it. And obviously, like everyone else, I probably expected it to bring so many followers and people buying from me into my business, and it didn't. And so
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Isn't it so weird?
it is so weird that it doesn't. That's why it's like you have to be really intentional about how you go viral, because I did have a different reel go viral, which is probably one of my other highest highs. But that was about something that I had created. So that was about my emotion value based niching method. And
Yeah.
everyone saying, like, wow, this makes so much sense. Like, I wish I'd known about this sooner, and really just buying into that. And for me, that was a high because that was virality off of something that I created and something that I knew was different and no one was talking about. Like, no one was talking about this different way of niching that wasn't just industry based or experience based. And so to see like the same exact problem that I was experiencing that I knew that there was a better answer to was also something that other people found a lot of like light in, and like they really appreciated it and enjoyed it. And so that was a really nice moment. And I took like 5 seconds to make that as well. I
Oh
was
my gosh.
at a
It's
conference.
always the ones that you don't think about.
Literally, like it's insane. I mean, that's one of the reasons. Like, don't overthink it. Don't put so much pressure on it, because you never know. And that really taught me. You never know. Literally, the experience I was in. I was sitting in a 4-day conference, 8 a.m. to midnight. Had not even eaten lunch, but got my reel done for the day. And I was sitting next to my friend, and I was just like, throw this video and this text and copy this caption and done. And then next
Yeah.
thing I know, I'm like, oh my God, like it worked. Okay.
I did it.
I did it.
Yeah. I also think that's an important perspective to have about social media when you're consuming it, is that a lot of the content that you consume is viral content.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we constantly compare to that viral content, but like you've experienced and you've said, and like I've experienced and said, that viral content isn't really what moves the needle in your business.
Mm-mm. It's actually the
So
ones that like don't get likes and like
yeah, no, for real.
attention.
Yeah, I had a reel go viral, and I did gain a lot of followers from it, but same, like obviously, all of those new followers I have to now nurture and get into my funnels and understand me and teach them about me before they're going to buy, which could take years, honestly.
Yeah.
But when you're scrolling and you're just seeing viral thing after viral thing, you can just feel like that's the kind of content I should be creating. I am so excited to extend this offer to all of my podcast listeners. If you didn't know, we just launched Intentional Instagram. This course is for anyone who is looking to bridge that gap between actually reaching their ideal audience and converting them into paying customers. So, this is for you if you're posting every day, but you are not seeing the payoff. You can't seem to reach the audience that actually wants and needs your offer, and you're overwhelmed and frustrated with how much time Instagram is taking away from your business. Get ready to say goodbye to all of that and start showing up for your community on Instagram every day in under 30 minutes and with a lot more fun, and spend way more time at the beach, going for your hot girl walks, or working on your next big thing, and also making more money with the content that you're already posting every single day. If you're listening to this and you want to get Intentional Instagram, head to the link in the show notes and use code podcast for 20% off. I will see you there. When not necessarily.
No, 100%. And that's the conversation that I see a lot of people having as well with other people on social media, is like, hey, you don't need to go viral to move the needle in your business. You really actually, that might be bad for you, because now I even have followers who follow me for reasons of them not wanting to buy from me. Like, they just follow me because
Yeah.
they liked my inspirational content, and
Yeah.
they liked that one reel that I put out. So, some of those people drop off and some of those people just sit around. But it doesn't necessarily lead to people who want to buy from you.
Yeah, or be part of your community or even participate. Like they don't even really care about your stuff, so they're not going to engage in any way. And then you're basically a bot follower.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're basically a bot follower, which I don't know if you do this. I consistently like go to the little potential spam and I always remove people who it flags. And I actually find that does boost your engagement when you do remove people.
Really?
Yeah.
I have never done that.
Yeah.
But I should.
Yeah,
And I can think of some clients that I should do it for.
I've done it even just like manually removing people, and that's one of the reasons why my follower count hasn't even grown, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to remove people who aren't an ideal client, like who aren't ever going to be part of my world or engage with me. Like I know that there's certain people who just won't be that, and there's really no reason for them to be part of my community. Like if you're a random man from somewhere else and you have no business, like I just know.
We don't need you. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I love that. So how do you have a business on social media, scroll every day, and engage with other people without falling into those traps?
I don't scroll every day. I really am intentional about the way I use social media. I have definitely in the past few weeks gotten more lost in the scroll, and so I can realize that and kind of come back to my own principles. But I think the thing is, are you consuming more than you're creating is a huge question to ask yourself. And if you're not creating more than you consume, I find that to be a bit of a problem with your business, where you're coming up with excuses as to why you can't get your post done for the day. But I know you just spent an hour looking at other people's posts. So,
oh my gosh, that's like, yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and I can understand it, but if you really do want to move the needle in your business, you have to consume, or you have to create more than you consume. And when you do consume, you have to be very intentional about the way that you consume. So even like setting time limits for how long you're going to do that for and what you're going to consume for. So like, are you going to consume for engagement? Is your intention to go on there and engage with your followers, engage with other creators, or are you just bored and searching for that dopamine hit and wanting to scroll to see what's new and what's up? And so if you're doing it for engagement, even if you're doing it for like competitor analysis, market research, whatever you're doing it for, just setting that intention before you go in so you don't get lost. And then it's almost like meditation in a way, but like meditation for social media. Like, are you being mindful about the way you're doing it? And that probably comes from my background with meditation, where I just can see that so much more. But really going into it with that intention and setting out what you say you're going to do. So not getting lost for an hour, but if you say you're going to do 15 minutes, set a timer, do 15 minutes and do what you set out to do for there. And if you don't have intention before you scroll, create one, because otherwise you're going to get lost in the sauce. Like,
I feel like too, post before you scroll. Like I post pretty much every morning just based out of habit. But like I will post before I even think about scrolling. Because I'm like, the most important thing is like my business growth, and what's going to actually help my business grow is me posting.
100%. That's a great way of doing it too, is sort of setting that like boundary for yourself. If I don't do my post, then I don't get to scroll. So if you do want to reward yourself with that little bit of dopamine, it's like the reward on the other side of doing the hard work.
Yeah, and it does become a reward, especially like the TikTok scroll. I'm like, okay, now I get to scroll TikTok.
I love that. I never let myself even start the TikTok scroll. Like I, to this day, have not scrolled on TikTok for, I'm very intentional about
Wow.
Because I know, like I know, I see even my parents scroll on TikTok and I'm like, this is why. Like you get off of work at your 9 to 5, then you sit on the couch and you scroll on TikTok, and this is exactly why I don't do that.
No, for real. I don't let it ever get in the way of like what I'm actually going to do. But yeah, it's totally can be addicting.
Oh,
And maybe
100%.
it's even going to get banned. So,
Who knows? Nowadays, it seems like everything is dead, everything is banned. Like IG is dead, TikTok's banned. What's coming next?
oh my gosh, that actually kills me. When people are like, Instagram's dead, like, if Instagram dies, what would you do? I'm like, something else.
Yeah.
I would do something else. I would be a bartender. Like, I don't know. I would do something.
I mean, I think if that did happen, what you would see is really the rise of like word of mouth marketing again and like in person networking. Because
Yeah,
just because you don't have that online space to necessarily like find people doesn't mean we're not going to go back to doing the way to the way that
that
things
we've
used
always
to be
done it.
done. So
Yeah. I'm so with you. Okay, so this kind of touching back to that reel you had that went viral, but how can you uncover what makes you different? I feel like you help people do that a lot.
yeah, I love this question. It really is looking back at your life is one of the things and just seeing and assessing where is it that I've stood out? Where is it that I've maybe even been like shamed or bullied or told that I'm too much of something to bring that to light. And I know for me one of my things was my sensitivity. I know that people used to definitely shame me and be like, you cry too much, you're just like too sensitive, things like that. And I've realized that that's one of the greatest differences of me versus other people. And one of the things that my clients love me for because they can tell that I'm so genuine in the way that I care. And so it's a blessing. Like those things that people have told you aren't amazing about you actually are the things that are amazing about you. Like what makes you different is what makes you unique. So looking back at times in your life where that did happen or the people did tell you you're too much or looking at your story like what is different about your story, what's not the norm, what is it that you've liked
Yeah.
and your passions that other people might not align with. And so even looking at your passions, what are the things that you feel other people aren't doing to bring that into your business. So I know one thing for me was like bringing meditation into coaching and into the business world because a lot of people don't use meditation as a way to sort of find that clarity. But that was one of the things that I wanted to do and be different in terms of the coaching world. And so I use that
Yeah.
background, that experience, and you can look at your experience, your background, like the other weird jobs you've worked in, bringing that to the forefront
Yeah.
and seeing based on that experience, based on my story, what is different in my life. And you might even need to like set aside an hour and just sort of journal and look back at the different times in your life where you're writing out your life story a little bit and you'll start to see little themes of what comes up and what you really care about as well. And you might not notice it yourself, which is why working with someone like a coach can kind of pull that out of you. Because I know I've had clients who see something, or I see something in them that they might not see as unique and different, but I'm able to pull that out because I can sort of just like see everything about you that makes you special in my eyes as well. And I know that that's what other people are going to
Yeah.
find in you as just being this amazing person, an amazing business. Another thing too is like always coming back to purpose, and this is one of the things that I start with every single one of my clients because your purpose is one of those things that makes you unique and different. Like we're all here to do different things, to be different people. And so looking at what you're here to achieve, what you want to be known for is a huge way to lean into what makes you different and what you value as well. So what is it that you don't agree with other people, or what is it that you do agree with, and really leaning into that, like not just
Yeah.
saying
Which like feels scary. I
yeah.
feel like a lot of people are really scared of that.
It is scary because you have to voice your opinions and you have to lean into that. And in the past, if you've been told like hush hush, like think what, like you're the type of person who maybe even your parents told you like kids don't speak, they need to be heard, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's where you can be afraid to voice your opinion and say that. But if you do it even slowly, it can help you start to build that muscle a little bit, and it really rallies that team of like loyal raving fans behind you who also agree with you, because you're connecting on these fundamental values of belief and what other people agree with. And so if you do want to build a community, you have to lean into what makes you different, but also really just leaning into what you believe in, because other people are going to believe in that,
Yeah.
other people aren't going to believe in that, but that's not your people.
Yeah, exactly. They're not your people. And you truly are not going to stand out if you don't have those opinions or those things that do make you different, or else you're just like, you're honestly adding to the noise. And it's just like, okay.
Exactly. And you see, even going back to like the viral content and everything, it's how do you do things differently? And like my one piece of viral content that I was talking about, my niching method, that was because I disagreed with how it was being done. And so saying that and actually voicing that opinion is what led it to go viral, because other people that I didn't know existed out there who agreed with how I was doing it were like, oh my gosh, yes, like I totally agree with this. Like I wish people talked about this more. And so you never know. Like you don't know who's out there who actually agrees with you. And leaning into your voice, leaning
Yeah.
into your beliefs, your values, that's going to connect you with your people so much more.
Uncovering your story, because that's what makes you different too. And I feel like we are faced with so many stories that are like blockbuster stories. Like this person was homeless and now they're a millionaire, or they went from nothing and became this, or had these tragedies, or just crazy things. But I think it's important to remember that like your story is unique without those. Like, my story, maybe nothing crazy like that happened to me, but just like my past jobs or where I live, those are all things too.
Those are all things. And there are going to be people who identify with that as well and find themselves in you. Like whatever job you had, whatever that was, whether it was like the specific industry or how you were treated, people are going to find themselves in you. And so that's a part of your story that really makes you different and that calls in those people in that community.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. You're not really on TikTok like we talked about, but the people on TikTok that really grow massive followings are people that are pretty normal. Like
Yeah.
they don't have crazy stories. They're just the people that are willing to talk about their life.
Absolutely. You see so many people who do what you want to do, and that sort of normalcy of like, oh, they can do it, so can I, even allows them to attract those people because they're just your everyday person, quote unquote. And so that relatability is something that actually drives people to you. Like you don't have to be the most different, the most unique, but relatability is also something that makes you different.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You just gave me an idea. I was like, I should totally mini vlog my day as a business owner, because it's honestly pretty freaking boring. People would be like, "Oh, I thought it was more interesting than that."
And you're like, hey, watch me write this email.
Yeah. I'm like, watch me work basically 9 to 5, even the equipment 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot too. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of it sometimes, like the working 9 to 5, even though we're not in that. That's
Yeah.
where I like to go out in the day and like do something, like whatever it is, a workout class, going grocery shopping, just those moments to break up your day and realize like I'm not stuck in this. Like I'm an entrepreneur and I get to live the entrepreneur life, because we can
Yeah.
get so caught up in that because we're just like, we love working.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. You get like addicted and you're like, I want to do it, but also like this is painful.
Yeah. And a little bit of it is even safety of just like familiar of what's known. I was talking to another creator about this a few weeks ago where she kind of forgot, like, oh, I can actually take a Wednesday off if I want to. And I'm like, go take a Wednesday off. Like, you forget you can just take the middle of the week off if you plan and schedule it properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle with that.
Okay, book it in. Just like once a month, I I really encourage even clients to do this, is just make a sort of you day, because that reminds you and makes you feel the success of what you've already created. Because as an entrepreneur, we just move so quick sometimes that we don't take time to celebrate that success. So like go get a
Yeah.
massage at a spa on a Wednesday, or like go grocery shopping on a Wednesday, whatever that is, or take your workout class, just to make you feel like, oh yeah, like I actually have worked for this, and just sit in that success a little bit.
Yeah, it's very difficult, I feel like, to recognize and celebrate successes. We kind of touched on that at the beginning, but it's like you just get so into it and you're just looking, it feels like you're reaching up and you're just like, I want to be like them, or I want this to happen or that to happen, that you forget how much you've already done.
Exactly. And that's where you might even want to just schedule it in. Like, we all do like our finances at the end of the month, or we sort of do that analysis of our business, but make that a part of your business analysis is, well, how much did I achieve this past month and how far did I come? Because if you don't take the time to like look back and realize how much you've actually accomplished, you're going to underestimate how much you can accomplish in the next month, or the next 2 months, the next 3 months. And
Yeah.
it's nice to realize like, wow, I've actually done a lot. Like that's good.
Yeah.
And take that moment for yourself.
Oh my gosh, I really love that. You've given me like all these ideas just for myself to like recognize what I've done and how far I've come already, and more just comparing myself to my past self.
Yeah. That's really what it's about. At the end of the day, like we're all on different journeys, and like we even said at the beginning, like Instagram versus reality, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. And so you know what's going on in your life and the best that you can do. And are you doing the best that you can do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to know. Am I? Could I be doing more?
I
Am I
know.
doing enough?
You can only do so much. I mean, you can do the best that you can do. I think you can know, just like you have your own internal compass and your own internal radar that
Yeah.
tells you whether you're doing the most that you can do. And you know, like, okay, if I'm posting every single day or 5 days a week or whatever, like I'm doing the best that I can do. Like that's just
Yeah.
a standard that I've set for myself. And if I'm doing that and meeting that, I'm doing the best that I can do.
First, I want to say thank you so much for being here and listening to my podcast. It means the world to me, and I just appreciate this community more than you could ever know. If you love this episode or a previous episode that you've listened to, go ahead and head to the leave a review link in the show notes and leave us a review. We would really appreciate it, and we're so glad that you're here. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. That's so important. Okay, one more question for you. This one's the big juicy question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's such a good question. There's so many things I probably would tell my younger self. I think one of the big ones is live from your heart, because you never know what could happen. And even just looking at the most beautiful things that have happened in my life have all come from the things that I lived from the heart and that I surrendered to, that I said yes to. And I just took that leap of faith, even though the environment around me said otherwise, even though my brain would have said otherwise. My heart was like, just do it, like, go after it. Like, my relationship that I'm in now, my business, like, all those things, they all come from that place.
Oh,
And so, surrendering to that, and also trust yourself more, because you like, I'm the first person to underestimate myself and criticize myself, but when I look back again, like I do celebrate the successes, and I there's so much wisdom that I didn't realize that I had growing up, that now I can really own and bring to the table. And it took a lot of learning experience, but I would tell that younger version, like, trust you. What other people say, you don't need to live your life based on the external and what they say or think that you should do and you should be and how you should live, because I've lived that and it actually created so much chaos in my life. And so
it really
following my heart,
does.
following what I really feel and believe to be true, is the one thing that I would say.
Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely like the embodiment of like a heart-led person, and you can just feel it. Like, I'm sure everyone listening will know too, but it's true. You really are. And I think that if more people lived from their heart and not just from their mind or what everyone else wants from them, it would be such a beautiful world.
I totally agree. And that was one of the things, even why I got into business coaching, was because I saw that gap of like people needing to live from the heart, and even just the different decisions you'd make in business if you led from the heart versus leading from the mind always.
Yeah.
It like you would see a totally different future.
Yeah. Your mind is so powerful, and our minds are great because they're problem solvers.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of times we let that problem solving take over everything, and then you're not really living in alignment with what you want or what you care about or what you love, because you're like, it doesn't logically make sense. And sometimes it's like, turn your brain off, go from the heart, and all of those logistical things will fall into place.
So well said. Like spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I love chatting with you. You are literally so sweet. I'll make sure I link all of your info. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And I'm just like love having been on this podcast and just watching the Rave Social grow and your community build and everything. And I love being part of your community too. It's just
that's so
such
sweet.
a nice place. So thank you.
Thank you.